Please welcome Shannon Schuyler.
So there's a lot that we do under corporate responsibility, and one of the things that I've had the absolute pleasure to do is to figure out what it means for PwC to be engaged in youth education. And so it's a pleasure to be here. Again, as Mukul said, I'm proud to be with PwC and a partner there. And for the last 16 years, my father, who is an educator, and every single person in my family has been an educator but me. And they have said, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Here you've worked at this big company that takes in somewhere around $10 billion a year in revenues, and what are you going to do to give back to the education system? And I've been questioning this every Sunday at 7 p.m. when my dad and I talk. And finally, last year, we started to think about what would this really mean? And after talking to a lot of people, we figured out what could we actually do that harnesses our skills? What are we known for? What are we good at? And if we were to turn just the people starting in the US, so 39,000 people, to do one thing to make an impact, what would that be? And when we started to look at the research and look at what was out there, we said, you know what? Financial literacy. We can help in that area. We can partner with schools. We can look at government. We can say, this is what we can offer you that you might not have. And so that's where this whole notion, you'll hear it over the course of the next couple of days, Earn Your Future came from. Our idea of how do you pull together knowledge, how do you pull together partners, how do you collaborate to say that this is a skill that our students need. This is something that 13 states have mandated. This is something that 80% of the teachers are saying we want to teach it in school, but we don't have the tools to do it. How could we put that investment into making that happen? And so that's what we've done. But this is something you can't do alone. I mean, we don't know anything about education. And my dad reminds me of that too, every Sunday, about the complexities of school systems and how they get money and what that looks like when you're a principal and you're a superintendent and you're a teacher. And so we need your help to figure this out as we go, but we're in this for the long haul. So I think the first thing that's really important to let you know is this is important to us because it's who we are. People are our number one assets. We don't make anything, right? So we have 39,000 people in the US, about 200,000 globally, and their knowledge is what drives our business. And not only that, but we bring on, in the US alone, about 5,000 campus hires a year. 5,000. Think about that. Think about being in one of our offices and you suddenly have 1,000 new college students. It's a rough October, and they all come in. But having that group really become a part of our culture and what does that look like is really important. And not only are they coming to us, but they're going to other organizations. And if they don't have a firm understanding of the basics in finance for them personally, as well as for clients, that's how we end up in these huge economic situations because people aren't informed. And if we can be a part of that solution versus part of the problem, that's what we want to do. And so we're putting our money and our time to that. And so our $160 million commitment is one that's good for us, but we think is also good more broadly. It's also something that we need to look at, that we can't do this alone, as I said. And so how do we work with government? We don't know how to work with government. How do we work with teachers? We don't know how to work with teachers. And so this is a collaboration to say, let's figure this out. And one of our amazing partners, Knowledge at Wharton, has helped us to do that. And so we're working with nonprofits like Knowledge at Wharton, like Junior Achievement, like Jumpstart, to say we're not trying to crowd the space, we're trying to make this space better. And how do we collaborate and how do we share and how do we take what you need and bake that in, and how do we take what's not out there and make it out there? Because businesses in your community and businesses nationally are there for you. I don't think schools know how to reach out to business, and I know business doesn't know how to reach out to the school systems. Help us. So part of this is trying to break down those barriers to say you have companies with resources, financial resources, people resources, knowledge resources to help you. And trust me, I know my counterparts at other companies, they want to help, they don't know how. So help us and reach out to those organizations, and when they call, take the call, because they have something that you may need and they're there to give it to you pretty freely, and want to make sure that they're helping government and they're helping you and they're helping the nonprofit sector. And finally, why we do this, we're doing this to give you a voice. You know, we said that there's 27 states that are represented around this room. 27 states. This is about giving you a megaphone to say what's working and what's not. You know, one of the most powerful things is I spent earlier this week in Mexico City with several members of my team because Earn Your Future has become something now that we're rolling out in different parts of the world. And so you have in the EU and you have in Latin America where they're really focusing now on financial literacy. And just like in the US, nobody knows the tools to use. Well, some of the curriculum that you'll be looking at today has already been translated into Spanish, Portuguese, and French. So we do have offices that have now picked that up. We're working with our Russian office, we're working with Japan, and you know where that's all come from? It's come from here. It's come from your feedback. And so not only are you here to give voice across the country to your peers and to your counterparts and your teachers, but it's also to give voice to those teachers who are outside of this country, who don't have these opportunities and don't have this infrastructure. And so one of the things that we're going to ask you to do over the course of the next couple of days is to talk about what you're getting out of this. Talk about what's not right. I happen to be a firm believer that we learn more from what doesn't go well than from what goes well. And so that's why we need your input so we can actually figure out what's a better way to do it if it's not this. But your input will help teachers across the country. We have found over the last couple of times, it doesn't matter necessarily who's talking in front of the room. That's great backdrop. But when the questions start, it's usually not questions to the person in the front of the room. It's questions back and forth in the audience. And that's what this should be about. This should be about the networking in the downtime, the networking in the hallways. How do you use this related to Common Core? How do you tuck this in your social studies class? How do you make this real in your computer classes? That's what the power of this is together. And so I would really challenge you over the next couple of days that, yes, this is your weekend. And I'm sorry that your weekend is spent in here, but I'm not sorry about giving the opportunity to be taught by some pretty amazing faculty here at Wharton. I know one of the reasons I love to come is to hear the things that I would not have gotten myself because I wouldn't have had the opportunity to sit in this audience. And so embrace that and take that back to people who aren't there. And also know that we have members of our US leadership team here who are giving their time instead of being in New York or being other places running our business. They're here. They're here to talk to you about the importance of leadership, to talk to you about the importance of financial responsibility. Embrace that. Talk to them. Ask questions. It's not a lot of opportunities that people get, so take this one. And so please make sure that you're giving us your feedback. Make sure that you realize that this is about giving you voice. If you have ideas, if you have suggestions, if you want to see and if you want a better, clearer understanding of how this is impacting a teacher in another country, let us know. Because we hope at the end of this weekend, you now become our advocates. You now go out there and you're amongst the 450, 500 strong who can help continue to amplify this message further and further. Everybody that's here, both on Mukul's team as well as my team, is here for you. This is your weekend. Please enjoy it. Please let us know what we can do to help. And I hope that you understand we are humbled that you are here. The things that you do every day are things that are the most valuable items out there of what we can do for our students. And so we can't thank you enough for the everyday, what you do in the classrooms. And the more that we can give back to you and empower you, the more that our education system and the more that our students will really be empowered to be future leaders. So thank you so much for coming, and we really look forward to a very good weekend. Thank you.